Why, hello there. Welcome to my channel. Today we're going to make a card that is a bit more neutral. One that's going to use up some of the scraps in my stash and one that I can be able to give to anybody. It's going to say you have made a difference. So it's a gratitude card for today. I'm going to start here with some Neenah Solar White in 1/10 pound. It is going to be 3 3/4 inches on the top and 5 inches in length. Here is my embossing powder, and I'm just drawing a circle using as a canister to draw a circle along the bottom. It doesn't really matter what it is that you use as long as it's smaller than the sentiment that you're going to use. I'm taking some strips of paper that I have left over from my stash. These ones here are 1/4 inch in width, and I'm going to put some double-sided tape on the back of it all along the length from one end to the other. This tape here is 1/8 of an inch, and I'm going to take the backing off. I tried to take the backing off. It didn't really work so well. I had to push down a little bit. Sometimes you need to do that to make sure that the adhesive actually sticks to your paper. I'm going to take the backing off here and then take one end of my strip and put it into my circle. I usually like to start off with the corner. For the first one, it just allows me to get the longest length out of the way, and then that way I know exactly how much I have of the rest of my strip of paper. I put the second one in just like that, and I'm going to continue around the outside of this sheet of paper, making sure that my pieces go over the edge. Now, I kind of made a little bit of a boo-boo there. As you can see, I didn't quite get it to the edge. But I don't think it's enough of a problem. It doesn't affect the overall aesthetic of the card. So I get to here and I get the end of that down and I think, okay, I'm going to pick up another strip. Maybe I'll stick it into this large space in the top. And I go to put it down and I think, no, I think I'm done with that color. One of the good things about not having taken the entire backing off is that I can just put it back up and it stayed where I needed it to be. So now I come in with some of my other colors. Here's a bit of a plaid with that two-tone on it, and I put it in there and I'm able to rip it with my fingers there, get some glue on my fingers, and I move in with some of my other colors. I sped this video up here because I didn't think you really needed to watch it in real time. I've got some seafoam type color in there and some of the other designs that I had. And in the end, I stick sort of a brown colored one up at the top and call it a day. I take a pair of precision scissors and trim every single strip around the outside off right at the base. This makes a much nicer surface around the outside of it. And I really like these scissors. I got them from an old cutting set from my slice machine. Does anybody have those or remember them from back in the day? Anyway, I really like the tool set. The tool set is fantastic, and I like this set of precision scissors that comes with it. I like using the label that comes with the old Michaels paper because it's nice and slippery as a background when I'm doing embossing. Here I'm taking my anti-static powder and putting it on my Neenah Solar White paper. Next I'm going to take VersaFine watermark stamp pad and use that with my You Have Made a Difference stamp from Hampton Art in order to put my sentiment onto that and do my embossing. I take that there and then stamp it directly onto my paper, making sure all the edges are definitely stamped. It's a little bit difficult to see that here, but you'll see it when you put your embossing powder on, whether you got all of the edges or not. I grabbed my Zing Gold Embossing Powder Metallic Finish in order to emboss this particular design with. I like this one. I've had it for quite a while, and I find that it works quite well for me. I know other people like some of the other types of embossing powder, but this is my favorite gold at the moment from American Arts. And I realize here as I go to do the embossing with my heat gun and I go, oh yeah, I stuck a thumb in it. So I'm using just a regular paintbrush to take some of that embossing powder off. I reuse it. I just put it back into my container. Maybe some other people don't, but I just reuse it. I find that once the embossing wetness, moisture has left it, it just goes back to being the way that it was and nice and crumbly or nice and powder-like. And so I'm just taking it off here. And I restamped it onto the other side. Just, you know, keep using that paper and it's not spoiled even though it didn't stamp well on the one side. Now, again, this embossing powder is a little bit older, and so sometimes it sticks a little bit more than it should. I don't mind the look of having some of the gold sparkles around it, so I took some of that extra powder off with my brush, but I really didn't worry about it too much. I thought it kind of added to the look. And you can see there as it dropped down that it is indeed shiny and metallic. Now I'm using a Recollections punch here that I've had for a very long time. One of the problems with using a punch like this after you've embossed is that sometimes it's really hard to get it to be straight as you're putting it into it, and can be a little bit of a struggle. And I've almost got it. Yeah, we're almost there. And that crunch is so satisfying. I'm using a vellum square. Again, I used a Recollections punch in order to punch that out. You could use some die cuts if that's what you've got in your stash. And I'm just putting some double-sided adhesive. This time I'm using the Suk Wang double-sided adhesive, and this is really my preferred double-sided adhesive. I really like it. It sticks. It really, really sticks. So you can't make mistakes with it and expect to be able to salvage your project. That's one problem with it, but I find that on the other hand, your project is still actually going to get to where it needs to get and still be stuck together. So it's a trade-off. Suk Wang for the win for me. I like to use pop dots. I'm just using these cheap dollar store ones to give it a bit of dimension, to put my sentiment onto it. Next I'm going to grab my Fiskars trimmer just to make sure that the dimensions of my base here are correct. And so I've got 3 3/4 inches along the width at the top, and then down towards the bottom it's 5 1/4 inch. And now I'm going to come in and do my base layer, which will basically go onto the front of my card. And it's 4 inches and then by 5.5. You can be able to see here, I took a big chomp out of my backing with one of my punches. I'm going to use it in a future card. So here I've got some Suk Wang double adhesive tape. I think this is 3/8 of an inch. It's a little bit more than, or like it's a little bit less than 1/2 inch. And I'm just making tabs with it off of each of the sides. It's all along the side, and I've got some in the middle. You can just barely see there. I'm making these tabs so that I can be able to put it, you can use them to better place my my front here onto that colored backing, lining up my corners, lining up the front, and then being able to push down in the middle a bit, and then to pull those tabs so that they're all in the right space. One of the problems with having put the tape in the middle is that it sticks. There we go. Now I can take those out, each of the sides, press along the outside, and have it be firmly adhered to that. And I've done the same thing here, again, making sure that my card front is facing the right direction so that my recipient can actually open it properly. And I'm doing the same thing with my tabs, and out one, out the second one, out the third one, and the fourth, and now I'm done. I made a second card with this basic design, but instead of using the vellum, I used a solid background and a lot less of the strips of paper in the background, so it has a much lighter feel to it, a lot more white space on it. But again, the same basic pattern. So you can use some variations on this design. Doesn't have to be completely filled in with the strips. You can make it be a lot more white and use less color in it. As you can see, the differences between these two. And finally, I'd like to thank you today for joining me as we made these two cards, the one with a more fulsome design and the one that was a bit more minimalist. So if you liked this card today, please consider giving it a thumbs up underneath the screen. And if you like my style, then please consider subscribing so you can receive the notifications when I post my next video. Thanks for joining me today. May you find joy in your card making and community in your card giving.
It's calling me.